Here we go!
Welcome to the Nintendo Power Zone. We are a videocast/podcast dedicated to bringing you the best Nintendo-related topics. As always, I'm your host, Nice One, and joining me today is my co-host, the returning Jaden Winsong. Welcome back, man.
Hey, I'm glad to be back. Sorry that I've taken some time away. It's pretty busy, and it will be busy for the next immediate future. But I'm hoping that I'll be able to square some more time in to keep coming on, because I've missed this a lot.
Well, guys, if you were here earlier, you saw that we had some very bad technical difficulty. I apologize for those. Because of those, Blues had to go ahead and slide out. But he will definitely be back on the show in 2 weeks. Maybe we're going to have some other stuff to talk about that he can get in on, because I definitely don't want to cut anybody out of the show. But with errors like this, it is what it is, and I am crunched for time extraordinarily bad, so this is my only recording day available this week. Anyway, with that said, looks like we've got the issue sorted, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the world of Nintendo, because there is plenty to talk about right now. Lots of little announcements, but you can tell we're getting close to that like E3 free zone where like the news that comes out starts to become really minimal and not all that important. But that being said, we've got plenty to talk about, so we might as well just go ahead and slide into the powered up news. And the first story we have is one that really bums me out, but I guess it kind of makes sense. Ubisoft will no longer be releasing any additional Starlink toys for its future updates. For those of you who don't know, Starlink Battle for Atlas is a toy-to-life game done by Ubisoft, and if you bought this game on the Nintendo Switch, then you got the extra content of the Star Fox missions, and those were a lot of fun. This was a really good game. Ubisoft did Star Fox a whole lot of justice when they made this game. That being said, though, there is a major update coming out for the game that's going to include more characters from the Star Fox if you're a Nintendo Switch owner, and just a whole lot more features in general. Before we go on with our actual thoughts, I want to go ahead and read off the statement that was given by Ubisoft. Despite the immense and continuous support from our players, the sales for Starlink Battle for Atlas fell below expectations. Consequently, we recently made the decision not to release any additional physical toys for the spring update and in the future. As part of our effort to do right by our passionate and dedicated community, we are currently hard at work on our biggest update to the game so far, and are pleased to tell all of you that there will be new digital ships, pilots, and weapons to collect. Additionally, there will be a ton of free content to expand your game, such as additional missions, challenges, new activities to engage in throughout Atlas, including content that was inspired by community suggestions, such as outlaw racing. On top of all that, you have the aforementioned Star Fox content that's going to be coming exclusively to the Nintendo Switch edition. So all of this content sounds really great, but from here on out, it's going to be digital, and that kind of leaves me with two thoughts. The first thought being is that we can officially put the nail in the coffin for toys to life. Even Amiibo aren't necessarily toys to life. They kind of just accentuate the games that they work with. There's never been a definitive toys to life game where the Amiibo characters are very prominent within the game itself. But as of 2019, we can officially state that Toys to Life is officially dead. And the other thought that it leaves me with is that perhaps we are starting to see a larger shift in gaming as a whole, where even our side content, even our expansion packs, we're willing to buy those things digital as well. We're starting to move away from having that mentality where the physical product outweighs the digital version of that product. We started to see stuff like this in MMO games like World of Warcraft, where you see these items are starting to hold real world value to the players. And that may be the case here with Starlink Battle for Atlas. You could buy all the ships and additional characters separately, and we're starting to see that maybe those digital versions hold more weight than the actual physical products. It is a shame, though, because Ubisoft made that amazing R-Wing for this game with the cute little Star Fox that goes inside of it. Love all of that. I'm sad to hear that they don't have any that they have no more plans to release additional content as far as the physical side of things are concerned, and possibly we may not see a sequel to this game as far as I'm concerned. Any thoughts, Jaden?
You covered a lot of the things that I was thinking of, actually. And yeah, I'm pretty bummed out, too, because Starlink as a whole is a really fantastic game. It's made particularly well. I mean, the story itself is a little bit Saturday morning cartoony-ish. But that being said, it was an enjoyable experience. And not only that, but the actual physical products as well were rather well made. And the R-Wing has some of the best detail that I've ever seen, and it was only like $20 or something like that. I mean, with the game, well, I guess the base starter package was what, 60, 70 bucks?
Started
Really?
at 70, and now you can pretty much get it for like $20.
Yeah, and so like when you add the value, because that's like a $10 star that physical R-Wing, so and it's actually pretty fantastic. It's great. So I'm rather bummed out from that perspective, because these were good quality for relatively inexpensive stuff. I don't think this is any real big surprise, though, because I think we've been seeing the trend of toys to life on a decline for some time now, and yeah, that it honestly doesn't surprise me. It's disappointing, but I'm not surprised, and I think a lot of that has to do with the target audience or whatever, right? In comparison to like Amiibos, because Amiibos do moderately well still.
Especially depending on the series of Amiibo.
Right. But I honestly think like Amiibos don't necessarily cater to children. I think it's more people like our age, people that work in offices that can buy these Amiibos and like put them on their desks, right? Things like that. They're a really great size in order to accommodate kind of your average collector that doesn't have a whole lot of space to put these big ships, right? And so it kind of makes sense to me that Amiibo is still doing relatively better than the other Toys to Life things. It's a shame, but I get it. Personally, I haven't bought any more Starlinks, like actual ships outside of the weapons, because those ships are big. I love the way they look. I love their designs, but I'm like, where the hell am I going to store this, right? well, the Amiibos, I can just put them on the bookshelf, and that's where they live. They're nice, and they're perfect for that size. So, yeah.
You actually touched on something that I had said on this show when Amiibo first launched. I actually forgotten about. Back when Mario After Party was the co-host of this show, we used to talk about the role that Amiibo play for people of my generation, and that is, when we were growing up, there was a whole lot of Nintendo like mania happening in the the late 80s and the early 90s. But the one thing you would never get was stuff of high quality. Like the quality of like all the collectibles, like they took, and still do if you have some of them, they take maintaining. I have a lot of old stuff, but I have to constantly make sure it's clean because it's old and the plastic will degrade or the cloth will get, moth ridden, and all like the quality was just not there. But Amiibo, they're made from much higher quality plastic. It's still plastic at the end of the day, and plastic will degrade and it can get sun bleached depending on where you put it, but it is a much higher quality than the toys of old. And I think Amiibo really filled that void of not being able to have like highly collectible Nintendo merchandise. It's a little bit different, here in 2019, where like where Nintendo's loosened up their licensing, and now you start to see things like companies like First Four Figures make amazingly high quality resin statues. Jaden's got the Majora's Mask back there.
Right. Yep.
And you start to see all these high quality products coming out from all these third party developers. And before that, there was nothing. And then there were Amiibo, and now you have all of this. And I also think that maybe as well made as the Starlink figures are, they don't actually match the quality of Amiibo. They are a little bit, for lack of a better word, cheaper. but they are much bigger, and that makes
Yeah.
sense. And because the game skews younger, it
Right.
makes sense that it would be cheaper because, hey, like if it gets breaks, it's easily replaceable. Not like Amiibo. If an Amiibo breaks, it's gone because you won't find it again.
Right. Right.
Nintendo has also created the mentality of Amiibo shortages.
Right. Right.
That being said, though, I am really sad to see that there will not be any additional Star Fox figures because I was really keeping my fingers crossed to get, Slippy, Falco, and even Peppy. I'm
Honestly,
sorry.
I wanted the Star Wolf, like ship. What I don't know what
Oh,
I
that
can't
would have
remember
been
what the hell they
amazing.
call it, but I really was hoping for that, and as well as the other pilot figures too. Hell, I would have loved to see a James McLeod and whatever the hell he piloted, because I think they mentioned he piloted like an R-wing prototype or something,
Yeah.
or maybe I'm just making that up.
No, it was a prototype R-Wing.
Yeah, but that would have been sick as hell to have a James McLeod in his prototype R-Wing show. Like, that would have been super cool.
It is a shame. I'm super bummed.
Right.
Shout out to the Starlink team though, because they did make a pretty fun game, and it did do best on the Nintendo Switch. We
Right.
did have like the definitive edition on the Nintendo Switch, so
Mhm.
I think that's awesome. I hope that the fact that they didn't hit their sales goals doesn't mean they're gonna let the franchise go. I hope they continue to iterate upon it with DLC, and I hope they decide to work on sequels because. Or hell, at this point, just let Ubisoft make a Star Fox game.
Yeah, I would also be okay with that.
All
And
right.
with like a R-Wing amiibo, I'd be fine with it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, but moving on, let's go ahead and slide into our next story because this one I'm up in the air in. So the Xenoblade Chronicles team has put out a job listing looking for more programmers, planners, and designers, as well as management support, so that they could work on a Legend of Zelda game.
Right.
Now, there are two theories on how this is going to work. The first theory is the Xenoblade team is making a Legend of Zelda game. That's probably the more extravagant of the two theories. Or Nintendo has contracted Monolith Soft to help in the development of their next Legend of Zelda game. Now, if you guys were paying attention, you will have noticed that Ubisoft helped the Legend of Zelda design team really build all of that world map that we got to play. And they more than to the point where only 40 people actually worked on Xenoblade Chronicles 2 consistently from Monolith Soft, because all of their design staff was either working on Splatoon 2 or The Legend of Zelda. I bet you guys didn't know about the Splatoon 2 thing. But yeah, so that's the more likely theory. I think Nintendo, as open with their purse strings as they've been willing to be with their IP, I don't necessarily think a mainline Zelda game is in the cards for Monolith Soft. And I think they filled their quota with spin-offs / side games with Cadence of Hyrule and obviously
Right.
Hyrule Warriors. But how badass would it be if Monolith Soft was actually making a Legend of Zelda game?
Yeah, and that's a really, really good point. I think it'd be super cool. I mean, here's the thing: like, Monolith Soft is its own development studio, right? But it's also owned by Nintendo, and so it's kind of like it's one of those weird like middle areas where, on the one hand, yeah, it's different, but on the other hand, it's kind of like it's the same, you know? So it wouldn't surprise me terribly if they're like, okay, yeah, Monolith Soft is going to be like the new development studio that only does Zelda stuff, and or that, I guess, their primary responsibility is going to be the Zelda IP now. I guess how like Retro Studios was the primary Metroid people for the longest time, right? That wouldn't surprise me if they went that direction. But at this point, it's all speculation, right?
Yeah, I mean,
interesting.
I don't see them really letting go of Nintendo letting go of the Zelda franchise. I think, especially after the success of Breath of the Wild. But I do think that they've found a way to work with existing studios to really enhance their games. I mean, obviously, we know that the bulk of Smash Brothers, the last 3 Smash Brothers games, if you include the DS, have been co-developed by Bandai.
Right, right,
We see a lot of like co-development with Rare for games like Mario Kart. The same applies for Metroid. We've only seen Nintendo hand off the reins to their first party IPs a number of times, and mostly to their second party developers.
right,
Monolith Soft is a second party developer,
right.
but I mean, it's weird because with Monolith Soft, they have other projects in the works. They are working on that unnamed like fantasy RPG that we saw artwork for about, I guess it's going on 2 or maybe 3 years ago is when they first showed off that artwork. But
yeah, something like that. Yeah, and it's hard to say really, like how second party, first party it is, because I think like Nintendo owns it 100% or like nearly 100%, right? It's kind of like how like EA, right, has DICE and had Visceral Studios, right? But like Visceral Studios was its own studio, but actually not, and so EA had the power to dismantle the studio, which they did, right? And so I'm kind of like, at that point, Monolith Soft is Nintendo, but it's not Nintendo. So it does kind of make sense for them to give the Zelda IP to them. But it'd be really different. It's a big shift for Nintendo if that's what they do. And honestly, I can't say that's terrible either, because Monolith Soft does fantastic work with waifus, and so I'd love to see the kind of Zelda waifus that come out of this too.
So as it stands, Nintendo actually owns 80% of the company, while Bandai Namco still retains 16%, and that's probably because Bandai Namco wants to keep the Xeno games that it holds in its library. I'm pretty sure if they had sold 100% of the company to the Nintendo, or at least, because obviously the 4% belongs to Takahashi, the founder of Monolith Soft. I'm sure if Nintendo had bought that 16%, they'd probably be allowed to release the remaining Xeno games on the Switch.
Right.
But at least we know that Nintendo and Bandai have a fairly strong relationship with one another, especially after Smash. So, maybe we get that Xeno collection one day. Now we just need to get Square on board to release Xenogears.
Yeah.
No, I think it's an interesting theory, but I'm going to put this in the camp of this is going to be another co-development project. I don't think that Nintendo is going to let the reins go of a fully realized 3D Legend of Zelda game on the Switch.
Yeah.
I don't think the Monolith Soft team is large enough to accommodate building a 100% Zelda game.
Yeah, it depends how they do it. I mean, if they use pre-existing engines and whatnot, I guess they could, right? But I mean, it really is just there's a lot that.
It's feasible, but I personally don't. I love Monolith Soft. I think they make fantastic games. I just don't think that they can really build a Zelda game on their own. I think they would definitely need help from the main Legend of Zelda team.
Right. Yeah.
Well, since we're talking about Legend of Zelda, we might as well go ahead and slide into our next topic, because it really does segue nicely. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey are getting Labo support. So we're going to get to play, it looks like the entirety of Breath of the Wild in VR, and then a section of levels of Super Mario Odyssey. This is cool. This is really cool in my opinion. Like, first off, I don't know if Nintendo can necessarily nail the VR experience for these two games, but I am willing to try it. I was already intrigued in Labo VR, but I think I might actually have to buy this.
Right.
And these are going to be free software updates and in the games themselves, and you only have to pay $40 for the VR kit, the Toy-Con kit, to make this work. So this could all be really awesome. I think I'm a little bit more intrigued with what they're going to do with Mario Odyssey, even though they're smaller slices. Um, because of the way you potentially have to hold this set to your face, I don't necessarily know if an extended playthrough game like Breath of the Wild is necessarily the optimum way to use Labo VR. But it is still cool nonetheless. And why is the elephant trunk mask VR thing not part of the Breath of the Wild experience? Like, come on, controlling Varuta with the trunk. Come on, missed opportunity, Nintendo.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like this entire VR thing with the Switch is particularly intriguing, especially when it comes to a game that requires the use of both Joy-Cons, right? Because as we know with the hardware, the Switch tablet itself doesn't have any like gyroscopes or anything to keep the track of the movement of the tablet. And the way that VR headsets work is if you got the high-end ones, they track the headset with other cameras. And if you're using something like Google Cardboard or the Samsung VR, they rely on the gyroscopes within the phones themselves mostly to do a lot of the tracking. And so it's kind of like how do they plan to do this? And the other part is like, let's be honest here. The Switch is not the most powerful machine. For the PlayStation VR, it came with a separate processing unit to help with the additional processing required of VR. And so I'm kind of like, from a technical standpoint, I don't know how this is supposed to work. It's kind of they must have done some weird wizardry.
I'm probably gonna be most concerned with how the latency issues are with these games. Google Cardboard, for the most part, has its issues, but I do like that Nintendo's playing with the concept,
right.
Of VR. Like they're not taking it too seriously. This is not a Virtual Boy fiasco. This is Nintendo saying, "Hey, you guys have been speculating on this since we released the Switch. Here's our Google Cardboard version of it."
Right.
And these are some pretty fun games to try it out on. I mean, and it's a nice way to get some extra mileage out of both of these games. Specifically Breath of the Wild, which is starting to get a little bit, long in the tooth. Like, even though it's like an amazing game that needs to be experienced on the Switch, it is a definite reason to own a Switch. But if you've beaten the game, a few times which I have, I've beaten it twice already.
Right.
Not a whole lot of incentive to go back and play it, at least right now. So having this, a new way to experience the game could be fun. That being said, though, I'm mostly concerned about the form factor. Because there's no way to play this because there's no real head mount. I mean, it doesn't strap to your face. You are going to be holding this to your face like those giant binoculars that you see at the top of like mountains, or when you go to the Statue of Liberty. You're going to be holding it up against your face. Not the best way to enjoy a game, if I'm being 100% honest.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit different. Really weird. And so that's, I mean, I'm definitely intrigued by the idea, but I'm also kind of, I don't know, cautiously optimistic. Maybe that's a good way to put it. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think we're just gonna have to hope for the good old Nintendo magic for this specific one.
Yeah.
All right. With that being said, though, we can go ahead and move into some Universal Studios news. So earlier this week, it was announced that Universal Studios is going to add the Super Nintendo World section to another park. This is going to be, they're going to build one at Universal Studios Singapore. They haven't released a date yet. They've only announced plans that it's going to come, which means that now 4 of, I believe, the 6 Universal Studios theme parks have officially been told that they are going to be getting these sections, which means that Universal Studios really believes in this idea. They're going all in with Nintendo because they're putting it in their biggest theme parks. Obviously, they announced it for Universal Studios Japan and Florida first, Then they announced their plans to add it to Universal Studios California, and now Universal Studios Singapore. This is going to be part of a $4.5 billion investment to expand the Singapore theme park, and that's awesome. They're gonna start in 2020 and they're gonna keep going to 2025. Obviously, it won't just exclusively be the Super Nintendo World section, but that's the most relevant to this conversation. So, personally, I think this is awesome. Nintendo and Universal Studios are finding ways to make it so that the audience who is attracted to this idea may not have to travel like to an extravagantly long distance in order to enjoy this section of their park. Having 4 separate locations will really minimize the amount of like traffic that's going to be dedicated to going to one specific park. Although I do think that as of now, the one here in Florida is supposedly going to be the largest, since it's possibly going to be added to the 4th Universal theme park here in Florida. We have the Islands of Adventure, the Universal Studios side. We have the new water park, and then we're opening that 4th park. So yeah, potentially the one here in Florida will be the largest, maybe encompassing more than just Super Mario, but we have no concrete plans. It seems like every time we report on one of these stories, Nintendo has changed, or Universal has changed what they're going to do with the Florida park. That being said, though, I'm excited. I imagine that most of these parks will be the same for the most part. I don't think there are going to be too many alterations between parks. I think the only thing that may contribute to any changes would be space. All right, any thoughts?
No, you pretty much summed it up. It's an interesting tidbit of news. It'll be curious to see which one of these like finishes first, because that will give us a good idea of how it'll play out in the other locations. So it'll be very curious. I'm very curious to see. I'm hoping we see more of the news regarding design plans and other thing like that in the near future.
I think as it stands, the Japan one is still slated to open in 2020, right before the Olympics.
That would make sense.
But it's still a weird time. I mean, because a lot of people will be traveling to Japan, but I don't know if theme parks are necessarily going to be at the forefront of their mindset during that time frame.
Yeah, but it may just be like, hey, let's just take a quick train ride and check this out. So it makes sense though from a marketing standpoint to be like, hey, let's try and time this with the Olympics so we can try and get some people in, right?
True that. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our next 2 stories because I think they tie together very nicely. I'm actually glad you're on this episode to talk about this because I think you'll have a hot take on this. So for our first story, Nintendo was listed as one of the top 10 most reputable corporations in America by a company called RepTrack, which they commission surveys every year. And Nintendo is ranked number 9. The top 10 is as follows. These are the most reputable / trustworthy companies in America. Starting at number 12, we have Bass Pro Shop. Number 11, Navy Federal Credit Union. Number 10, Lego. Number 9, Nintendo. Number 8, Costco. 7, Hasbro. 6, Barnes & Nobles. 5, McCormick & Company. 4, Rolex. 3, Whirlpool. Number 2 is the Hershey Company. And ranked at number 1 is Netflix. So Nintendo is the most popular, it seems, entertainment company within the bunch, or at least digital entertainment company of these bunches, because we have a credit union, a fishing store, and a couple of different toy brands, and a few food brands. But still, it is very cool to see Nintendo on this list. I think it's very cool. It says a whole lot about the mentality of like how people view Nintendo as a company here in America. Now, obviously, this only applies to America, but this is a really cool list, and I think it ties in nicely with the next story. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that one up real quick, because with that being said, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft are all having their business practices investigated by the Competition and Markets Authority. The three companies have received letters requesting information about online gaming contracts. Game Industry reports that the CMA intends to examine whether the contract terms are fair, how easy it is to cancel a pre-order or obtain a refund, and how the auto renewal process is regarding things like regular reminders and default setting. So basically, all these companies are going to be taken to task for their purchasing systems. This includes pre-ordering a game, obtaining a refund, and the auto renewal of their subscription services. So right now, all three companies have their own subscription services as far as online networks are concerned. So Nintendo has Nintendo Switch Online, Xbox has Xbox Live, and Sony has the PlayStation Network. Now, I think the most damning issue here is when it comes to things like the pre-order and refund. I've only had one instance where I had to ask Nintendo for a refund, and it was because I double purchased Captain Toad on the Wii U digitally. And it was fairly easy to get that refund, actually. I called, they literally just said, okay, we see that you purchased it twice, here's a refund. Now, I haven't had to ask them for a refund because I was dissatisfied with the game. I know for a fact that if you play something like 30% of a game on Xbox Live and the PlayStation Network, that you are no longer eligible for a refund. Yongye did a really great video about this topic back in 2018, where he took, I think it was EA to task. I'm actually surprised this only extends to the hardware manufacturers and not to some of the game developers. But this is all really cool because on the one hand, you see that Nintendo is considered one of the most reputable companies, and on the other hand, they're being taken to task by the Competition and Markets Authority, saying that their practices may be unfair. So, Jaden, I know you have a hot take on this. So, what are your thoughts, man?
So, well, first of all, I'd love to see the methodology and the sort of questions they ask for the most reputable moniker, right, or their study. But that aside, I mean, that's more like an academic interest, right? But that aside, it actually says a lot about Nintendo as a company, right? Because you don't really see a whole lot of Japanese companies on this list. I'm looking through the entire extended one, and there really aren't a whole lot. You got Nikon, the ones who make the big cameras, right? Yeah, that's the only one out of a list of 100 that I'm really seeing, aside from Nintendo, that's a Japanese company. And so I think it really says a lot about Nintendo. I mean, they've been criticized a lot over the years over their practices and shortages, whatever. And there's always the kind of edgy people on the internet that think that making fun of Nintendo is still cool for some reason, which it kind of stopped being cool in 2004 or 2005. So I don't really get why people still push that. But anyway, I think it says a lot, and I think a lot of it has to do with the much better marketing that they've had for the Switch. Nintendo Directs as a way to reach people directly and feel personable. Reggie Fils-Aime has been an amazing spokesperson, for example, for them. Really, they've just done a lot of good, hard work in the past past 4 to 5 years to really kind of dig themselves out of the hole that I think the Wii kind of put them in, right? So I think it's really interesting. That aside, though, I'm not terribly surprised about the digital purchases investigation. I mean, this has been a thing that's been going on for a while. And honestly, I'm surprised that Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft haven't been hit by it sooner, right? I can't remember where exactly it I want to say it started in like Australia or something like that. But I mean, they had made waves. What is it, 2 or 3 years ago now, when Steam got like taken to court or something along those, investigated for their practices regarding refunds. And so, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that we're seeing this now hit these other ones. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we don't really have any sort of real sense of like guidelines or regulations about how these sort of things are supposed to be handled. And yeah, I think that's probably where this stems from. And especially when you have like digital stores that can be accessed globally, it does throw an extra complicated wrench into the mix. So I don't think Nintendo's going to be nailed particularly hard by this, or because I doubt that they have any sort of practices that are less favorable than the others. It's kind of just one of those natural occurrences over the course of like moving into a digital sphere. It'll be interesting to see if and or what sort of policies are deemed necessary to come out of these investigations.
Well, from a pure consumer standpoint, Nintendo does have a lot of like checks and balances in place as far as making a purchase from the get. Even though I have my card preloaded onto my Nintendo Switch, whenever I go to make a purchase, I still am prompted about like 2 to 3 times as to whether or not I actually want to complete that digital purchase. Like, I always do the thing where you add the funds. It's like, are you sure you want to add the funds? Then you add the funds. Are you sure you want to purchase the game? Then it asks me, you want to purchase this game? And then you have to go through the checks and balances. There's a fair amount of checks and balances on the Nintendo Switch, so you don't make any accidental purchases that would require a refund. But that being said, if somehow you were to bypass all those checks, does the refund process balance out? That is, I would be interested. I hope one of our listeners lets us know, because I'm very interested to know what the refund process is like. I definitely want to not ask for refunds for the games that I do purchase, because most of the time I feel like I make pretty educated purchases when it comes to myself. But that being said, we've all been burned by a stinker before, but it's kind of the reason why I still opt for the physical media over the digital at this current juncture. It's very easy to return a physical product.
Right. And that's one of those things that I kind of like about, say, Steam's policy, right? Where they basically give you 2 hours worth of playtime, and then if you exceed the 2 hours, then you're no longer eligible for the refund, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense from that standpoint, and I'm actually quite fond of it. I do kind of empathize with the people who are like, yeah, my kid bought like $300 worth of stuff, and I can't get a refund because they like leave their credit cards on the digital whatever surface, whether it's on their phones or on the PlayStation or whatever. I'm kind of like, yo, you did that yourself, bro. Like, you played yourself. Come on.
When I worked for AT&T, that was a constant thing that people were calling for. This was about 4 years ago. Candy Crush is at its peak.
Yeah.
We would have a lot of parents calling in. If you listen to the audio version, I did air quotes. They would call in saying that, oh, my kid spent $1,000 on Candy Crush. And I'm like, okay, well, that means your kid had access to either your phone or your account or your card, in which case the first thing you want to do is put a freeze on it. And obviously AT&T doesn't want to lose money on any of these purchases, so we have to come to a happy median. It was always hard because you have to look at each customer under their own lens. You can always kind of tell when somebody's lying about the purchases. But then, even if they aren't lying, the purchases may exceed they may get to this point where they're so high that it would obviously be a loss to the company to issue a refund of that magnitude. Like, I've literally seen people with $1,500 cell phone bills, and $1,400 of it was Candy Crush or some other assorted cell phone software.
Yeah. It's kind of ridiculous how much people will spend and then be like, oh no, I spent all this money. How do I get my money back? Like,
yeah, buyer's remorse is a real thing.
Yeah, and it's like on the one hand I empathize, but on the other hand I'm kind of like, yo, you got to take a degree of responsibility for your shit, man. Like,
you see, but that's what's cool now is that Apple made a lot of changes to their hardware where there are checks and balances now. If a user is making purchases on your phone to that magnitude, or even approaching that magnitude, the authorized user is made abundantly aware, especially if it's on a shared phone, shared phone.
Oh yeah, like a plan. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So it's iTunes, oh, somebody's making these purchases. Do you want to authorize these purchases? And you, as the head of the household or the head of the main phone line, will be notified, and they can veto that shit real quick.
Right. But then there's also the other ethical argument of well, to what degree is a company or other sort of entity responsible for the stupidity of the people that use their service? You know what I mean? That's an entire another can of worms, which I don't actually know where I land on that argument, but I'm just saying it is an argument that exists.
To some extent, I do believe the corporations that make the software do have to have a system of checks and balances in place. You have, at least at the very least, is are you sure you want to make this purchase? It's pretty much like how a save. Do you want to save the game here?
Yeah.
You have the balances in place, and if you choose to bypass it, at that point you've made a willful decision.
Right.
At least in my opinion, once you've made if the checks and balances are in place, and you still make the willful decision to make the purchase, to some degree you should be held accountable. So if the company does choose to issue a refund or even a partial refund, I think that's well within their rights.
Yeah, and that seems like a reasonable argument to me. But like I said, I'm kind of undecided on the entire thing. Yeah.
It is kind of interesting, though, that this is so industry-wide, and it looks like only the companies that also make the hardware are being targeted, because I think we look at the practices, if you look at what EA and Activision are doing, and I think they are maybe the main culprits of what this whole investigation should be. EA and Activision do have the harder return policies, and they do have their own subscription style services as well. But this is only targeting the console makers. Very interesting take, in my opinion. We'll see where this goes. We're going to keep you guys posted with any new information that comes out with this. So we plan on revisiting this story in the near future. With that being said, though, let's talk about leaks. So yesterday, Nintendo released 2 new trailers or commercials. One of them being for a multitude of games, and the other being specifically for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And on the Ultimate one, they may have potentially leaked a new mode coming to Smash Brothers. I didn't even see this. I watched the trailer a few times, and I didn't see this until it was specifically pointed out. But apparently, a stage builder got added to the Games and More section, and it's briefly seen on the TV screen, which is crazy because it's not even the focal point of the image that's on the screen at that point. It's blurred in the background, but there is a stage builder. So that could be cool. We could be getting another stage builder mode coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I don't remember if the Wii U version had a stage builder at this point. If it did, I obviously didn't use it very much, but I did use the one on the Wii a whole bunch for Brawl. That being said, though, it is cool to see this section getting added to the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me too, especially with the degree that Nintendo has found success with the entire stage building sort of genre. I mean, specifically, I'm referring to Super Mario Maker, right? And it wouldn't be a stretch for stage editors, builders to be in Smash Brothers either, because it's been done in the past. So yeah, I don't think anyone was really particularly surprised that this was coming. I honestly, I probably lean on the side of Nintendo intentionally linked this.
Man, if it was intentional, man, they did a good job of hiding it. Because like I said, I watched the trailer a few times and I didn't notice it. It wasn't until I started seeing like reports everywhere that I even gave it another look and was like, oh, it is there. Right. I mean, you have to be like, at that point, you're freeze framing the damn video like every second just to catch a glimpse, possibly something new. It was probably somebody looking for like Joker's character model.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy crap, I found something else instead.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool. I mean, shout outs to all the people who did notice that, because you guys are on something else, because I totally didn't see it. And I watched it like 3 or 4 times before it started making the rounds.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time where a company or a director, producer, whatever, would have made something and been like, let's see if people actually notice this, right?
Yeah, Nintendo snitching on themselves.
Yeah.
All right. But that's cool. I mean, I'm glad it's there. I mean, I probably won't use it, but it would be interesting to play on some fan-created stages that my friends make. It would be better if it had like an online share capacity, but I don't expect it.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. It seems to have gotten a lot of... I mean, the sharing element, rather, seems to be a big selling point of the Mario Maker, right? So, it wouldn't surprise me if they included it here as well. I mean, imagine they already have a basic framework, right, from Mario Maker that they could draw upon to inform how they would do a sharing platform for Smash.
I don't know, man. I still think they got a few online bugs to work out before they even attempt to start doing sharing in Smash.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with some of the stage designs I can come up with, I'm pretty sure I'd be eating up people's frame rates like crazy.
Right.
But that being said, I think let's go ahead and slide into our last news story, because I wanted to end the news segment on something that I thought was fairly heartwarming. Been a few years since Iwata died. He died back in 2015, but recently a Twitter user by the name of Kumozawa1203 shared a letter that he received from Satoru Iwata, and it's in regards to a school project that he did. Kumozawa decided that he wanted to do his school project on Nintendo, and so he reached out to Iwata via a letter of all things. And I think what's great about this is that Iwata took the time to reply to the letter, and this is what the letter says in its entirety. Hello, this is Iwata from Nintendo. Thank you for the letter. I'm very happy that you chose Nintendo for your Hello Work at 12 project. In middle school, I developed an interest in computers, and before long, I decided to study computers seriously in college. While I was a college student, I realized how fun it was to make video games and chose that for my job. Making video games is a job that requires a lot of energy, but for me, it was even more fun than playing them. That and the fact that other people could also enjoy what I'd made gave me a sense of purpose. Game development requires the drawing together of many different fields. You need people to think up game designs, people to draw the pictures, people to make the music and sound effects, people to program, people to test the game to make sure that the whole team is working together well, and so on. That's why I don't think there's a right answer to the question of what you should study. I do think that you'll be able to find what you're good at by thinking deeply about all the things you're interested in, not settling for spending your days without increasing your knowledge, making lots of discoveries and repeating that process. While what you're good at and what you enjoy doing might not necessarily be the same, I've had experience I've had the experience of others recognizing things I'm good at even if I didn't actually like it at first. That's one reason why you should continue studying and gain experience without bias. Please do your best. I love this story. I love the fact that 4 years later, after Iwata's passing, we can still get stories like this. And it shows you what kind of commitment Iwata really had to Nintendo's audience, its fan base, the people who spend their money on Nintendo games, the people who invest themselves in Nintendo, like us. This is an amazing story, and I love this. I love this. It just goes to show the love that Iwata had, not just for Nintendo, but for video games as a whole. And man, I'm just really excited to see like a story like this, and I definitely thought it would be a great way to close out our news, our Powered Up news for today.
Yeah, it's really touching. I think it really says a lot about Iwata as a person, right? And it's funny because rereading that a second time or third time now, whatever. But it's funny because even though I assume it's translated, right? Even still, I can kind of picture in my head Iwata saying that, right? Like, judging from the mannerisms that he's displayed in the directs and the interviews and all the other ones, like, it sounds very Iwata.
It does. It reminds me a lot of the Heart of a Gamer speech that he gave at I guess it was at that E3.
Yeah. So it's a very bittersweet memory. It's just a damn shame that there really aren't that many people like Iwata in the industry these days. I think a lot of... Huh?
Not even at Nintendo anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they do have some, but not so much. I don't know. I think that companies like EA and Activision could really benefit from having people like Iwata.
Most definitely.
But yeah, it's nice.
I mean, like I said, I really do appreciate this, like this coming to pass. Like, this is such a great story. Like, and it kind of puts in the forefront of my mind is how much I actually miss Iwata, his presence. Like, we've gotten to the point now where like Nintendo Directs have moved on without him, and Nintendo has found success with its new presidents. Tatsumi Kimishima and the new president whose name currently escapes me, but like they've done a very extremely good job in Iwata's absence in making Nintendo like at the top of the heap again. Like, Nintendo's sitting the prettiest it has since like the Wii era, and if we just go back one generation, it never looked like we were going to get back to that point.
Right.
That being said, I'm really happy to see this story. Again, makes me miss Iwata more and more. Like, the presence he had. Maybe they weren't the best years, but it was definitely like the most personal time frame.
Right. I agree.
With that being said, that's gonna wrap up our Powered Up news, guys. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take a 5-minute commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to do an extended edition of What Are We Playing, and then we've got some channel news, and then we're gonna wrap the show up. All right, guys. So please don't go anywhere. We'll be back in 5. Welcome to the Nintendo Power Zone, guys. It's your boy, Nice One, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna call this an early show. We've had some pretty bad technical difficulties on my end, and when stuff like that happens, it pretty much halts the progression of the show because I am the host server, so when I have issues it kind of messes with the whole thing, and then we end up with like scheduling conflicts, which is what happened today. So I apologize for the inconvenience, and we're gonna do better in the future. I'm gonna try to have all this sorted out by the next session, which is in 2 weeks, so we should definitely be able to figure something out by then. Anyway guys, before I let you go, I want to hit you up with a little bit of what are we playing, because I have some news that's gonna tie into that. So right now, I've been playing a few games, starting with Final Fantasy VII on the Nintendo Switch. Now, for those who know this show, who've been following us since, pretty much year one, you know that Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game of all time. It's the #1 game in my top 10 video game list, and we did a whole episode of that back in like 2015 with myself and Mario After Party. So yeah, I'm super excited to play this game. It's been about 15 years since I last played it, and I'm surprised at how much stuff I actually forgot and how much stuff I actually remember. What I love about this game is that I love the music, I love the characters, and I love that this is one of the first games that really gave me, the swerve. I spent so much time building up this specific party member, only to like be gut punched as this character is taken away from us, which is like my first experience with a permadeath in a video game, and it really sucked. And it just throws you for a loop, and I don't feel like there are very many games nowadays even that actually go ahead and have the balls to do that, just take away a main character from you like that. So I always thought that was cool, so I'm really happy to be playing that game. On top of that, I have been playing a lot of Splatoon and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, just getting back in the swing of things. It's been a while since I played those games, so I've been rusty and I've been wanting to get back on that horse. And lastly, I've been playing a whole lot of Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission. I am excited that this game is out on the Nintendo Switch because it's been 8 years coming. We've been waiting for a Western release of Dragon Ball Heroes for 8 years, and we finally got it. And I think they did a phenomenal job. The game looks great. I know it's supposed to be built on the Xenoverse engine, but for some reason, I think it looks a lot better than Dragon Ball Xenoverse. The character models look about the same, but there's something about the shading and the coloring that make the game just pop a lot more, and I really like that. On top of that, the characters introduced in the game are a whole lot of fun. You have Beat, you have Note, and you have all the other side characters, and I love all of that. And the game surprisingly has a lot more depth than I initially wanted to give it credit for. I thought it was going to be really cheesy, but there's a whole lot of like strategy involved in the game. I can't wait to get a little bit better so that I can start playing in some of the online matches and see how terrible I am at that. Aside from that, I don't know what else to say about the game. It's just a whole lot of fun. I'm not like super deep into it yet, so I have to explore it a lot more. But I do have like this strange addiction to the capture system, or the gacha system in this game. Like I keep finding myself spinning tickets after ticket, trying to get better cards, and that's really cool. And I like how this game doesn't try to take real world money from you. They're like, hey, all the cards are here. You just have to win enough of the in-game currency, and we're gonna throw it at you for every win you get. And yeah, so it's a really great game, and from what I've seen, the community is also really embracing it, so I really like that. Now, at the end of the day, I'm still a little bit salty that this feels like a consolation game when we know that the PS4 and the Xbox One are getting, the RPG that should be coming out later this year. We don't have a title for that yet, but still, this is a consolation game. But I'm hoping that because it's made with the Unreal Engine, that Bandai Namco will see how much Switch users want these same style of games. Obviously, we bought Dragon Ball FighterZ, so let's go ahead and get, the games we want. Come on, Bandai, don't play with us anymore. Give us this. And why am I hitting you guys up with a what are we playing? It's because I would like to announce that we have gone ahead and relaunched the Twitch channel. If you've been paying attention to our YouTube page, you've noticed that there have been a few live streams that have been posted on the channel, and we're doing those through Twitch. We wanted to go ahead and relaunch the Twitch channel because we wanted to have more engagement with the audience, and we obviously want the channel to grow as much as possible. So the best way we figured we could do that was by relaunching the Twitch channel. So we went ahead and scrapped all the content we had on Twitch before, and we're relaunching it like a brand new channel. What does that actually mean as far as scheduling is concerned? Right now, we operate the Nintendo Power Zone on a bi-weekly schedule, which means we're on one week and we're off the next. What I intend to do as of right now is the week that we're actually not recording the podcast, that's when I intend to do some dedicated streaming here on the Nintendo Power Zone so that there's content for you every week. What have we done so far? So far, we've played Super Dragon Ball Heroes on the Twitch channel. We've played Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and we've played Final Fantasy VII. We did the first hour of Dragon Ball FighterZ and the first hour of Final Fantasy VII. And we intend to do more first hour streams like that. And we're calling these Nintendo Power Zone Power Plays. I actually just think it's a really great way to engage with the audience. So guys, you should follow us on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Nintendo Power Zone. I'll probably be streaming from 2 p.m. to about 4 p.m. on the days that I am streaming. I want to make sure that we have a really strong, dedicated setup. And on days where there are like launch games coming out, like when there are new games coming out, I do intend to do a midnight stream of those if possible. I'm not going to make too many promises there just because of scheduling. And I also want to make sure that Blues and Jaden can also get in on some streams time as well. So guys, please subscribe to us on Twitch because we are going to have a whole bunch more content. This upcoming week, I am going to be streaming Super Mario RPG on the Super NES Classic Edition. I thought it would be a whole lot of fun to explore that game in comparison to Final Fantasy VII. Simply because there's a lot of history between those two games and between Nintendo and Squaresoft during this time period. So I really want to, throw some history at you while I play the game and just, make sure that we're having a really good time just doing this Twitch thing. I think we can do this like pretty consistently. I don't foresee any changes to this schedule right now. And if the channel does well enough, I'll figure out a way to open up some more time so that we can do some more streaming. But as of right now, we are going to be streaming on the weeks that we aren't recording. So there's going to be a steady stream of content, and I'm really excited to announce that. Again, please subscribe to us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Nintendo Power Zone. But guys, that's going to be it. It's time for us to go ahead and get out of your hair. But before I let you go, I got to hit you up with the social media links. You can find Jaden at twitter.com@JadenWinsong. You can find Blues at TheKingBlues. Blues spelled BLOOZ. You can hit me up on Twitter at Nice1983, and you can email me at nice1983@gmail.com. You can check out the Nintendo Power Zone on Facebook, facebook.com/Nintendo Power Zone. If you're a fan of this podcast, you can always download new episodes on iTunes, Google Play Music, stream new episodes on Stitcher Radio. But if you want to watch the show live, you got to catch us right here on YouTube, youtube.com/Nintendo Power Zone. Hopefully we won't have any more technical difficulties there. But guys, lots of different ways that you can download and listen to the show. And we're also on Spotify now. That is the newest platform that we're on. You can download and stream episodes on Spotify. So we're on every major platform. So there are tons of ways for you guys to check us out. We hope you guys enjoy the show today and all the other content that we bring. Thank you guys so much for watching. And remember to stay fresh. Deuces.